Good evening to all of you. I am Reverend Dr. Vanessa Monroe. I am the president and CEO of Journey HTX here in Houston, Texas, in the Sunnyside community, and pastor of Bethel Church United Church of Christ. Excited to be here this evening, but first just want to welcome you here, welcome you into this space, welcome you to Journey. This is a artist talk that Journey hosts once a month, and I want to welcome you here. Journey is an inclusive green space in the Sunnyside community of Houston that facilitates wellness and healing, responds to our shared trauma, and provides space for breathing and being. Breathing and being. We're determined to improve preventable stress-related physical and mental health outcomes. We understand that when we engage in practices such as yoga and sound healing and journaling and blowing bubbles and silent retreats and sitting by the water, that it starts to de-stress us. And in our community, we need to de-stress in order that we might be healthy and whole. In addition to artist talks, we host retreats, art installations, yoga, meditation, all kinds of non-pharmacological activities. And tonight we have with us an artist, Akua Fayette, who has written a book and has art here that is part of her Black Canvas project. And we will be able to view the art in the dining room when we leave from this space. So super excited to be able to have a community artist and activist here with us this evening as well. So thank you. Thank you very much for being here and for the work that you do in community. Thank you so much. And this evening, we're talking about human-centered conversation in the midst of division, in a time of division. Human-centered conversation. And we're talking with Traci Jae, the quiet rebel. She's the convener of human-centered conversations, beginning with love first, always. Her work is grounded in honoring lived experiences and builds on the foundational scholarship of past and present justice and equity leaders. She's an advocate for those who are systemically marginalized and values artistic expression as a way to build bridges. Traci Jae is a proud, lifelong Houstonian, grateful mother of 3 adult daughters, and reluctant grand to 2 pups. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm
welcome.
So glad to be here.
So glad to have you here. Been wanting to have this kind of conversation with you for a while. And on this very first weekend of Black History Month with art and conversation, let's get into it.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Okay. So let's just start with the beginning. How do you define human-centered conversation?
So, if you get a chance to follow my work at all, you will find that I am a lover of acronyms. Also alliteration, but certainly acronyms. And the word human is an acronym. It stands for honest, urgent, meaningful, accountable, and nuanced. And originally, when I started using that acronym, it was in terms of equity work specifically. But the more I use that set of words together, the more I find that if we take those practices into the way we communicate with each other, into our conversations, into our daily actions, then those situations become more fruitful, and equity tends to take care of itself.
Thank you. One of the words that stood out for me in that acronym was urgent.
Yes.
Right? Can you say more about that?
Yes. So when we talk about urgency, let me back up and say that if you study white supremacist culture at all, then that word urgency comes up often as something negative. But if everything is urgent, nothing is urgent.
That's true.
Right. And so in this particular instance, in the word urgent in the acronym HUMAN is prioritizing those things that are actually important. And how I suggest people look for what is most important is, where is the pain? If we go to where the pain is and address that first, then we can talk about all the other things, right? But if, like when we were talking about Black Lives Matter, right? And people were like, well, all lives matter. Yes, but it is, in this moment, it is Black lives that are being lost, right? This is where the urgency is. If we were earlier, someone was having a conversation about someone's house on fire, right? If it is my house that is burning down and you go next door and offer my neighbor a water hose to prevent the fire from spreading to their house, that is not urgent.
It's not urgent. That's good. That's good. Where is the urgency?
Where is the urgency? Where is the pain? And in the absence of pain, which unfortunately we live in a society where that absence of pain doesn't really exist. But in the absence of pain, how fast can we get to the joy? Like that's also urgent, right? Like running towards the joy. That's urgent.
Yeah. I've been saying recently, joy and justice, right? Justice and joy. Like we are pushing for justice. We are working hard. We're advocating, but we have to have the joy. We can't just move in the ways that are painful or just addressing the pain. We have to be able, in order to maintain our sanity and ourselves, to address the joy.
Absolutely. And we have historical reference for that, right? If we're talking specifically about Black people and about Black people who are descendants of people who were enslaved in America, we have evidence of their joy alongside of all the other unfathomable, which is not a word I like to use, but the unfathomable things that they experienced. There was also joy. They might have had to sneak out into the woods to find it. Right? It might not have been safe for them to be joyful out in public, but we would not be here if they did not find joy.
That's beautiful. I think we also have, when you said that, it made me realize that we have biblical reference for that also, people who are oppressed, right? When we think of those who are oppressed in Egypt, right? And Pharaoh comes to say, how are you still having children?
Yes.
Because we found some joy, right? Even though you are by day making bricks without straw, you are able to continue to multiply because you can come back to your community after the work is done, however hard it is, and find some joy, right? And so as we begin to walk into this Black History Month, that's a beautiful reference for us to have, it is in our DNA that in the midst of hard times in community we can find joy.
Yes.
So it might be at the hush arbor, right? It might be the ring shout in the middle of the field, but we find a way to laugh and love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Music, dance, those are things we brought with us across the water. They're in our soil. They're in our souls. We can't let them go.
Right. It's like hearing the beat of the drum and not being able to be still. Yeah. Okay. All right. Human-centered conversation. So given the acronym, right? And we talked about urgency. Why do you think human-centered conversation is important now?
Well, we live in a crazy time where everyone is pointing fingers at everyone else. We create these sort of artificial divisions within our communities. We segregate ourselves based on what we look like, who we love, how we worship, how we vote, how we earn our living, how much money we have. Right? We have these things that divide us and make it easy to say us and them, us and them. And if we're always trying to find the places that divide us, then how do we ever coexist? I do a lot of work and workshops with organizations, and one of the things that I've noticed in that work is that people want to rush to the similarities. We are in a hurry to find out how we're alike. And that's great, right? We can find some common ground in the places where we are alike. But the thing that is most true is that we are all different. Everyone in this room is different. Everyone in your family is different. Every person you know is different from the other people you know. And we are never not going to be different.
And that's all right.
And it's okay. But we should stop acting like it is like the worst thing ever in life to be different from other people, because we are, and we are never not going to be different.
Yeah. And so that we could actually begin to celebrate it as opposed to using it to each other, right?
Yeah.
So we use our differences against one another.
Right. Instead of figuring out how these differences can help us get to a different place. Right? Because we are all different, then we're all bringing something else to the space.
Yeah.
And if we're all bringing something with us to the space, then that is lighter work. But if I'm over here not wanting to be in the space where you are, then that means that the only tools I have at my disposal are the ones that I came with.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't have any access to your tools.
Right.
Right? And not just your physical tools, right? But your mental tools, your spiritual tools, your financial tools, your whatever tools you have. I don't have any access to those because I don't want to be in your space. And then I have to work harder. And then I have to use up all my own resources. But if we operated like community and we showed up with what we have and built off of other people's resources, then we could get a lot further, a lot faster.
That's good. That's really good, because I think you make the point beautifully that we are not looking to see what the other brings that we are different from, right? We are not seeing another's difference and thinking, let's have a conversation about that, right? Let me have some respect for your difference and some appreciation for it. I think, unfortunately, particularly in this time of such division, we just make it wrong. We just make the difference wrong or bad, or bad's a very basic word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we make it frightening.
Yes.
We lean into the fear that is associated with being different instead of the excitement, right? I learned this somewhere before, so don't trust me. Go look it up. But your body does not know the difference between fear and excitement. And if we are leaning into the fear and not into the excitement, when our brain doesn't know the difference, Like, we could easily make that switch. I'm so
good.
excited to be in the room with these people who are different from me. Let me figure out what that feels like, as opposed to I'm so afraid.
That's a good way to enter a room, particularly amongst, it is still, we are still accounting firsts today, right? We're still saying, oh, this is the first African American woman to do, this is the first African American child to do. And so we still find ourselves in rooms where we are one of a few or the only one. And even to think, for us, as we walk into a room, I'm excited to be here and see how this, rather than leaning into the anxiety and the fear, to teach that to our children and be, I think, a practice that would help us, because we are so often the one in the room who's the only one.
Yeah. And fear is a learned behavior, right? We learn it from the people around us because they have been harmed, and so they want to keep us safe. But we also learn it from our own experiences, right? We walked into the room where we were the only, and it did not turn out well for us. And so the next time we in a room where we're the only, we don't want to be in that room, right?
Right.
But
it's hard to have the excitement.
It is hard to have the excitement, but my good girlfriend taught me this. This is not that.
This situation is not that last situation.
This situation is not that last situation. And we do ourselves a disservice by believing that this situation is that situation. Now, that's not to say that we don't take the lessons, right? Because fear is there for a reason. It keeps us safe. However, we can be afraid and still keep going.
Yeah. We can do things afraid.
We can do things afraid. And when we allow the fear to paralyze us or to make us reluctant, then we miss out on so many things.
Yeah. I have a very good friend who says that every important thing she's ever done, she's done afraid. Yeah.
If you're not just a little bit scared, it might not be might not be that much fun.
So as we think about this division, and we're hearing about it, we're seeing it. I think you even mentioned how we're wanting to name who's causing it. We've had some news lately where someone is determining where the division begins in our country, which I won't give voice to in this moment, because it is trying to point a finger at someone as the cause of all the division. And so my question for you is, how do we personally participate in the division?
So we participate in a few ways. One is by not naming it. We just get in the system and go with the system the way the system always goes. And then we don't try to get off this ride. Right? Or we say, well, that's just how it is. But is it just how it is? Because it doesn't have to be that way. One of the things that I'm trying to unlearn or rewire my brain around is this idea of systemic problems.
Okay.
Right? Yes, we have systemic problems. But systems are created by people. And it will take people to undo the systems. So we can't just keep talking about a systemic issue as if it is this amorphous thing that doesn't have people attached to it. Right? All the systems have people attached to them. Now, what makes a good system is that it operates without any additional input. And we have a lot of systems in our country that are operating without any additional input. Right? They are autopilot.
Yeah.
Because they've been around so long. And we have agreed to those systems. Right? This is an agreement. Everything we are doing is an agreement. And what it takes is for enough of us to disagree, to come to a new agreement.
Yeah. I don't know that we always realize we have that power, though.
Well,
or that we've made an agreement.
Yeah, we've been convinced that we don't have the power.
Yeah.
We've also been convinced that the problem is too big for just one person. Right? Mm-hmm. And it is. It is too big for just one person. But it is not too big for all the people. Mm. And if we keep talking about the things we want to change and we talk about them in silos, and if we just keep talking about them and don't ever take any actual action, then they're going to just stay what they were.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is true. That's powerful to think about the fact that systems are attached to people, because particularly when we name it systemic, right? It feels as if it is the way it is and not easily changed because it is part of the system, right? So to begin to think about how we change systems is that's the work.
It is the work, and the work is not impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it is not necessarily easy. It is not necessarily light, but it is not impossible. And we know it is not impossible because we have seen other systems change. And some of them have not changed in our lifetime, but some of them have changed in our lifetime.
That's true.
Some of them have changed in a way that we would determine is good or preferable, and some of them have changed in the opposite. Okay. Right? Mm-hmm. We have seen some things in just the last, I'm going to say decade, but not even that long, unravel in front of us that we thought were systems, that we thought were never going to change. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. We saw affirmative action unravel. We thought it was a system. It was never going to change. We saw Roe versus Wade unravel. I'm 51 years old, right? So in my lifetime, it has never been a time where Roe versus Wade did not exist.
And we would call that systemic.
And we would call it systemic. But systems can change. We also saw people in the LGBTQIA community get the right to marry. That was a system.
That's right.
That's right. Unraveled.
That's right. That's right.
Right. And that happened in my lifetime. Right.
Right.
So the things that we have come to know as regular, as ordinary, as systemic,
yes,
can be undone.
That's the good news. So there is hope for us.
I believe
in this time of division.
I believe there is hope for us. I have to believe that there is hope for us, or I cannot get up every day and do this work.
Yes, there is hope for us.
Right. Now, I did have a conversation with another scholarly friend who does not believe in hope. So if he happens to be listening, I heard you, brother. I understand your position. I'm just saying. As for me and my house,
yes,
we have to have some hope.
Some hope. Some hope. Some hope and some joy.
Yes, some hope and some joy.
Yeah.
One of the things in my personal life is that I have a motto, feed the happy. And it was birthed out of my divorce.
Okay.
Because I was doing a lot of things and most of them made me sad. And I was like, I just don't know how this is going to keep going because I'm sad a lot. There's an expression, what we feed grows and what we starve dies. Mm-hmm. And so I decided I was going to feed my happiness. Now, often that looks like food. so people think that when I say feed the happy, they think I want to go eat.
Yeah.
And I do like to eat. So food does make me happy. But there are a lot of other things that add to my happiness. Right. And so I am purposeful. I'm intentional about doing things that make me happy.
Yeah. So feeding the happy might be a practice that we can take on in this time of division, right? When the news each day reminds us of how divided we are as a country, how even in communities we are divided. There are few things that we can say everyone in this area is going to think like this, right? Or everyone on this side of town, every Democrat's going to believe this way, or every Republican's going to. We are, even within our division, we are divided, right?
Yes.
So how do we find the hope? And maybe feeding the happy is one of our practices that we could take on.
Absolutely. And whatever that looks like to you, right? If it is going for a walk, or if it is doing yoga or meditating, or eating not excessively, because anything in excess is not good for you. Right. Another practice that I have is blowing bubbles.
We might do a little of that before the evening's over.
For me, blowing bubbles is a reminder to breathe. It is an activity where I can stop everything, even if it's just for a minute, and not think about anything else. And when I'm blowing bubbles, I can literally watch the things that don't belong in my body leave me. Right? And I can bless them on their way.
And let them go.
And even if it's just in that minute, because, real life is real life. And sometimes we have to get back to the stuff that's not so pleasant. Right? But it doesn't have to be constant.
That's true.
And we can take a break.
That's good. Do you have any other practices that we might engage?
I prescribe nature.
Okay.
I like nature. I also think about other things that you did when you were a child that you might think are silly now. Go do those things, right? Go get on a swing set. Pull out a coloring book. Play hopscotch, right? Play jacks. If you can still get down on the floor and get back up.
You can still sweep them. Yes.
Those things that we did when nobody cared how we were spending our afternoons. Go find some of that stuff and do it.
Yeah, I love that. Our family played cards recently. And we used to do that all the time, but we got busy and all of the things, and we were at a family dinner, and after dinner was over, we pulled out a deck of cards and started playing, and we were loud and laughing and really having such a great time, and that joy, right, in the midst of, not because everything was wonderful or everything was in place, but we took some moments really just to have some joy. And it was easy. It was a deck of cards, right? It wasn't expensive.
Yeah. That's another word I'm trying to unlearn from myself. The word expensive or inexpensive. Okay. Not necessarily unlearn those words, but the practice of using them, because they are subjective, right? And so when it's possible, I'm trying to say exactly how much a thing is. Right? So a deck of cards might cost $3. Right? So for some people, that is inexpensive. For some people, $3 is a meal.
That's true.
Right? And so I'm on a real word kick right now.
So I don't have to name it. I can just say what it is, right? I don't have to name it expensive or inexpensive. I can just say it's a $3 deck of cards, and you can decide.
And then you can decide
what that means to you,
right? Because in our mixed context and in a space where everyone is different, right? Then we all actually attach our own meaning to words, right? I attach my own meaning to what the word expensive is, right? Yesterday, I was having a conversation with people about imposter syndrome and professionalism. And one of the things that I have struggled with in my working life is attaching a monetary value to the work that I do. Part of it is because I do the work I love, so it doesn't really feel like work. Another part of it is, though, that I realized I had some like self-doubt issues and some unworthiness issues and some other kind of baggage that comes along with being a Black woman who didn't get her degree until she was grown, and all those things. And so when I would hear people say how much they charge for the stuff they do that was very similar to the stuff I do, I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a lot.
Right. That sounds expensive.
That sounds expensive.
Yes.
Right. And so I was, in many cases, not earning what I could have earned because I was afraid to go beyond the definition of the word expensive in my own head.
That's good. Well, we are at a place now where we can entertain some questions from our audience, if there are any. Are there any questions from the audience?
So, usually I work with organizational leaders. I work with them in a cohort, and then I also meet with them individually. As when we are interrupting racism or anti-Blackness or any other kind of ism, that work does not happen from the top down. It happens from person to person. And oftentimes people don't know what they are bringing with them into those conversations already, or where they might personally be stuck. So the short answer to your question is everything is different for every person. I do not do yoga. I am a self-proclaimed nogi. That means I do no yoga.
Nogi.
You're no a nogi. Yoga. No yoga. I'm a nogi.
Well, I am a self-proclaimed yogi. I do yoga. I do. That's one of the practices for me that does help me get to. It helps me to return to myself. It helps me to hear and to see, to dream, to imagine. It helps me to pray. I know that it is great for our yoga instructor here at Journey says to us all the time when we may be going into a particular pose, and she'll say, we want to keep all of our original parts, right? So it's important for us to move and bend and be. But I find particularly restorative yoga as a way to be poured back into. Right? So particularly when you're doing this work, when you're doing work with others, when you are creative, a lot comes out of you. And I find that restorative yoga allows us to just be still and allow a refreshing to come for us. So I really don't like to miss the yoga practice. I think there are some other practices also, right, that help us to get to the joy. That naming piece, that like saying it out loud, what the thing is a big deal. Because we don't always want to rock the boat, right? We don't want to cause any more confusion. We may say everyone can believe whatever they need to believe, so I'm not going to say anything about it. And then what does it do to us as we hold in our thoughts and feelings, how does that impact us?
Yeah, it's eating us up.
Yeah.
And then we die from things that we don't need to die from. Stress is the leading cause of death for Black people. And it's not necessarily the stress itself, but it is what stress does to your organs. I will leave you with what I normally would begin with, which is love first always. And as I said, I'm sort of an acronym junkie. So love is another acronym. Stands for listen with your heart, own your experience, venture into unfamiliar territory, and expect the best.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time for us.
Listen with your heart.
Okay.
Own your experience. Venture into unfamiliar territory. Expect the best.
Okay. When you said venture into unexpected territory, I thought that's risky. And then you followed it with expect the best. So even as I'm venturing, I'm expecting the best.
Yeah. I mean, it's an invitation to lean into your curiosity.
That's good. You're giving us some different ways to enter the room and some different ways to enter the conversation. And so for that, we're really grateful. That's going to help us move into this season with a lot more excitement and joy.
Excitement and not fear. It's the same thing inside your head.
And not fear. That's right. No fear, no anxiety, all joy. Well, thank you very much. We have certainly enjoyed this conversation.
It was great. Thank you.
Yes, and we are we're fortified. We're ready. We are ready to tackle, because the division is widespread amongst us in this moment, right? It appears to have a foothold, but we understand that even the systemic things can change.
Yep.
So as we prepare to, stand up straight and roll our shoulders back in this Black History Month time, we are also ready to have some human-centered conversation.
Amen.
Thank you, Traci Jae.